Okay, I did work in a greenhouse for a couple summers doing this kind of propagation, and it is an art. Just when you think you know what to do and when to turn off this mist to get the roots to start growing, you're wrong, and you lose a whole tray or a whole half a greenhouse because you turned the water off too soon or you didn't mist it long enough. So this is a very important process in terms of commercial propagation greenhouses. As rooting progresses, you're going to want to just turn that humidity off, and the less humidity is going to force the roots to grow down. As you can imagine, all of a sudden you're misting them every day and they're so happy, and then you cut that off and it forces them to grow roots. You will give them a higher light and you will transplant them when roots are formed, or you'll ship them somewhere. Leaf and bud cuttings, these are not as popular in commercial greenhouses because they're just delicate. They're more popular in greenhouses and things that are doing plants, like, that are propagated. So your cacti, your cam plants, any of your plants like that, all of your plants that look kind of like this, you can grow from the leaf. So essentially you're going to cut the leaf across veins like this. You're going to put the plantlets where they form edges, that's like these guys, and you're going to just plant them. A lot of times you, in a commercial greenhouse, are definitely going to want to dip them in a rooting powder because it just increases your chances of getting a good cutting. Sometimes you take root cuttings. This is young roots are cut from the plant. Then they're planted below the surface of the soil. The soil is kept moist, usually not misted, just watered every 2 or 3 days, and the stem ends up forming. So basically you've planted this root going this way, and eventually these little adventitious stems start to form up and roots develop on the other end. Root cuttings are very cool. I like a good root cutting. Sometimes you can just take the adventitious root and plant it. This is basically a herbaceous stem. The adventitious roots originally grow laterally near the tissue. So sometimes you can just pluck this off and just plant it separately. Woody perennial stems, the wood originates in the region of the vascular tissue, and in both cases, new roots are able to just establish once they are put into soil. Here's a cross-section of a shoot cutting after the bark has formed, so you can see where the original shoot cutting was. Okay, factors influencing rooting of cuttings. The source of material. Obviously, do you have a healthy mother plant? Is there a good accumulation of carbohydrates? Is the plant young? Is there juvenile tissue still there? Taking the lower leaves of super old plants are not going to get you enough totipotent or cells that will continue to make new tissue. Time of year is really important for a woody perennial. Hardwood, late winter, softwood, spring, semi-hardwood, midsummer. Herbaceous cuttings, which is what we did. Anytime the mother plant is in good condition, it really doesn't matter. Anytime you have good conditions in your greenhouse, or if you're doing a big hoop house, you want to make sure that it's warm enough outside. So here we go. Another thing that people do is etolation, which is when you grow a plant in darkness and you get this stem that that's trying to grow towards the light. So this is what the plant should normally look like, but we put it in darkness and it did this, right? So now what you can do with your succulents, this is a lot of the ways they do these succulents. Sometimes you can just pluck these leaves off, right? That's pretty common. Another way to do it is to put it in the dark and force it to do this, and then you can take a stem and a leaf cutting. And it's easier to root than just the green tissue because you have the stem and leaf tissue together. So that is a common thing that they do for succulents, is they will put them in the dark to make their stem elongate, and then they will get a stem and leaf cutting. Auxin use. We will talk about these kind of chemicals in the next chapter. So you have IBA, NAA. We'll talk about auxin and what it does, but one of the things it does is it stimulates rooting. So if you want to make sure that your plants root, you can use a little bit of auxin on them. Factors influence rooting. Misting is probably the most important if you're in a commercial greenhouse. This prevents desiccation before the roots develop. Frequency depends on the environmental conditions, but primarily it depends on what you are trying to root and how much. It allows the cuttings not to dry out. Timers don't really work because you have to go in there and see the plant. you have to basically respond to the environment that's going on. If you just set a timer, you don't know how hot it was that day, you don't know what the plants are doing, you don't know if you're starting to see mold, you have to go into the greenhouse and look at it. Reduce frequency. As soon as a callus and roots start to form, you cut them off. You stop the misting, or you do it just like once every third day. This avoids mold and fungus and anything that's going to grow on them, and it forces the roots to start growing down. Bottom heat also keeps the base of the cuttings warm, and several methods to provide this, but mostly just flat, the trays that we use in the greenhouse, except they're warm. And you can gradually reduce the heat as the plant becomes warm. So grafting and budding. So grafting is what they do typically with commercial like vineyards and apple trees and oranges. They graft. So basically they will take a root stock that is good, healthy roots, and they will graft onto it the newest type of apple, right? So if you want the new, I don't know, Galas aren't that new, Honey Crisp, you're going to take your old plant that's already in the ground, you're going to cut it, and you're going to produce a new piece of graft onto that. The grafting is here, and then you're going to you're going to wrap it in wax or what's called grafting tape. You're going to join the plants as one. You're going to piece the stem with 2 to 4 buds. If only one bud, you're going to just do it there. Do you see? You cut it where the bud is, and you're going to do that with a really good rootstock. During grafting, you've got to hold these tight because basically you want the xylem and phloem to line up, and that is not an easy feat, and you want to completely cover that with a good grafting wax. The reason that we propagate clones and plants with hard to root cuttings, so that's your apples, your vineyards, your oranges, your any kind of citrus. It prevents dwarfing, so we want the good rootstock, but we want the newest type of apple or the newest kind of orange. It improves the quality of the fruit. Again, if you planted apples from seeds, they would taste terrible. You wouldn't be able to do anything with them. It imparts some disease resistance if you get good cuttings from a disease-resistant source, and it serves to check for diseases. So here's some ways to do that. The whip and tongue is probably the most popular in terms of, I don't know where to put me so that you can see. Okay, the whip and tongue, basically you're making this is just your splice graft. This is kind of the old way to do it. It works. It doesn't work great because if you don't tape it right, you can see how this is going to slide down. This prevents that. It gives you a little hook there to keep that in place, and then you're going to put your tape around here. It helps with some natural compression. You are going to have a cleft, which is putting something in here. So you're going to cut it, you're going to cut this, and then you're going to put maybe 2 buds in here. You're going to wrap it, and very often you will put a wax over that because this is an open spot. You can't have that just open. So you're going to put some wax there. A T-bud is essentially you're going to take the bud off, right? You see how there was a bud there? You're going to make a T cut in it, and you're going to put a new bud. So this is the old one. You're going to take it off. You're going to bud something new. You're going to cut it off here, and you're going to put the new bud. And then you're probably going to have to tape that up so it eventually grows straight. Okay, some more ways that you can graft. Here's some more, just again, what they're telling you. Here's this whip and tongue again, where you're going to stick it in there so it doesn't fall away. That's probably one of the more popular types right now. The cleft, here's what I was saying. You've got this cleft here, but you have to put some wax over it because that's an open wound that disease will definitely get in. And there's very specific propagation tools for these, propagation knives and things. So grafting and budding, here's your T bud. You're going to take the old bud out. You're going to make the T. You're going to put your new bud in. The T's are made from rootstock bark, and the top of the rootstock is cut off before growth starts. So at some point, you're going to cut this off, and this one's going to grow. Just way more ways. Healing, you've got to heal the callus, the parenchyma cells. You have to intermingle that callus intermingling, so you don't want it to callus too much. You want the xylem and phloem to connect. That's ideally what you're doing when you're grafting. What happens? What goes wrong? Oh, many things. Incompatibility. It doesn't form a graft union. This happens a lot. The xylem and phloem don't meet. they're more distantly related